Politics. We could talk Russia invading the Ukraine, the president talking about immigration, so much to talk about.
Yeah, and no strategy to fight ISIS. Joining us this morning, Republican Senator John McCain. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate
Glad
it.
to be with you, scamps.
Right out of the gate, we need to talk about President Obama's comments. We've known about ISIS since, what, 2009? We've had intel on this.
According to West Point story, yeah, for 4 years.
How can he come out and say publicly that there is no strategy here?
I'm hoping that he didn't mean it that way, but unfortunately, his actions have indicated that there's no strategy. And also, what is the question? What is the goal? Is the goal to stop them? Is it to rescue people on mountaintops? Is it to only engage in humanitarian stuff or protect Americans? He's got to articulate that our goal is to defeat ISIS. This is an outfit that hundreds maybe of British and at least 100 Americans are over there fighting. They're going to be leaving that battlefield. According to all our intelligence people, including our defense, this is the biggest threat we've faced. We've got to act in a way that will defeat them, and that means going into Syria. It means arming the Kurds. It means a reconciliation with the Sunni in a new government, and stabilizing the situation. It's the largest, wealthiest, most powerful enclave of terrorism in history.
How do you fight this? I apologize. We were talking about this during the break. How do you fight? I mean, you can't necessarily declare war on a country.
Well, you can go in. This is a terrorist enclave, caliphate, and you can go in with air. This is ideal terrain and climate to go in with airstrikes. But then you've also got to have a Kurdish military they're called Peshmerga with the right military equipment. You've got to have Sunni who will support the government, who will reject this extremist. Look, these extremists will probably be rejected by most of the people. The horrible things that they're doing, people reject, but we've got to give them an alternative. The biggest mistake the president made was not leaving a residual force behind in Iraq. There's decisions the president made that have caused us to be in the situation we're in today, and I know we are short of time, but now there's been an invasion of Ukraine. When the United States stops leading, it creates a vacuum and bad things happen, whether it be with China in Asia, or whether it be in Iraq and Syria, or whether it be in Ukraine. All over the world, we are seeing more turmoil than we've ever seen.
The escalation of violence, especially with the beheading of James Foley, you were angry, you were very vocal. Do we go in immediately? I mean, how do we cut this off now?
And we've got another American on deck to be beheaded as well.
Yeah, we do, and this pictures of them hurting those captured Iraqi soldiers. Just, you know, it's heartbreaking because it could have been prevented. 192,000 slaughtered in Syria with barrel bombs and chlorine gas. But what we need to do first is lead. Second of all, recognize them for what they are. Third, say this is an enemy that must be defeated, and we will take all necessary measures. And we don't have to put American boots on the ground. We don't have to have an invasion as before. We can provide them with weapons, with training, with air support, national reconciliation, the Kurds being able to fight, and the Free Syrian Army in Syria can still survive. Barely, because we haven't helped them enough. But the Free Syrian Army, if we trained and equipped and gave them a safe zone, they could defeat ISIS and Bashar Assad.
Let's transition here and talk about immigration reform, because you helped with a bipartisan deal that passed the Senate, died in the House, and toward the end of this last session, you were very angry about not anything getting done.
Well, there's still 11 million people in this country who are here illegally. We still have a flood of children on our border. It's not an acceptable situation. In the case of immigration reform, I am disappointed that the House of Representatives would not act. We asked them to act in any way, and we would be glad to negotiate with them. On the issue of children on the border, We have to change the law so that these children would be returned immediately. That way they won't be motivated to come. At the same time, increase our embassy personnel, our consulates, so if there's a case to be made for them to have asylum, they can go to our facility there and make the case, rather than just show up on our border. And remember, how do they get to our border? They're taken by the most evil people on earth. They're subjected to terrible things. There's estimates that as many as the young girls are raped on the way up. So that's got to stop for humanitarian purposes alone. Let's provide facility in those 3 countries, Guatemala and El Salvador, where they say, look, my life is in danger, I want asylum, and we will then grant it to them if they can make a compelling case.
I'm thinking about the people at home. I mean, this is one of those stories that you feel removed from unless you're right there at the front lines. What can people do who are watching this story and who are, I mean, indirectly but directly, we're all affected by it?
Well, I think, frankly, one of the reasons is to vote in November and determine where their elected representatives are on this issue. By the way, I am not up this time, but also contact your elected representative. There are many people, and I understand the frustration and anger. I look at a poll recently in Arizona, and it's really the #1 issue, and I understand that anger and frustration. But shouldn't we sit down together, Hispanic community, non-Hispanic community, all of us together and say, okay, what's the way forward on this? We don't want children mistreated and terrible things happening to them. We also have to have a system where people cannot exist in our society in a fashion where they have no rights to the protections of our laws and society. But at the same time, there has to be an orderly process for immigration. We're a nation of immigrants, and we should recognize that, but it's got to be done in an orderly fashion, and that's why I hope that when people examine the legislation that we passed through the Senate as a way forward on this issue, at least we should agree the status quo is unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you very much. We would love to continue to talk to you, especially the VA system. I mean, so much to talk about. We hope that you come back and join us very soon.
I will be glad to.